All right, hello YouTube. So I have a question for you guys. When is an actor truly too old to play a role? When do you think, um, when do you think, when do you think it is, an okay time for an actor to be like, okay, I've done this role for, X amount of years. You know, it could be, it could be, 2 decades, it could be, 3 decades, whatever, but, more so, when do you think, um, when do you think is the time that fans have truly moved on? I guess, what I'm trying to get at is a lot of people out there are saying that the Snyderverse is never going to come back. Zach has moved on, the actors have moved on. Everybody's moved on, which is not at all true. And I'm going to bring up, some prime examples of this, not just the Snyderverse, but also some other examples as well. Um, but I'm going to start with Snyder because I feel like, because, but I'm going to, however, I'm going to start with Snyder because I feel like it is the biggest argument right now that people are using. So if you look at and as I just said, everybody is saying, oh, they've moved on and yada yada yada, they're too old. Like Henry Cavill just turned 42 as of today. And look at look at Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He played that role for like 17 years. And then he played that role for like 17 years until and then in 2017, when promoting Logan, he said that he was done. He said that he was leaving the role. And and then of course, a couple years later, they announced, Hugh Jackman, announced his return as Wolverine, for Deadpool and Wolverine, and obviously and rightly so, it completely blew up the internet. Everybody couldn't believe that that he was actually coming back after he originally said that he was done. And that is a very, very prime example of the fans saying, no, we have not moved on. We want, if he were, if, this is a very, very prime example of fans, of there still being, interest among fans. There is still, um, there is still, the fact that this movie made the amount of money that it did, the fact that that announcement, blew up the internet that day and made the amount of money that it did, shows that there was still a very, very shows that there was still interest among fans. There were still people who wanted him to return. So to say and it goes, so to say, uh, so to say something as stupid as, oh, move on, move on, the actors have moved on, everybody's moved on, to say something, to just automatically assume that to just automatically assume that everybody has moved on, when even the actors, and I'm going to use Snyder in this example, when literally the actors themselves and Snyder himself has said that they are more than willing to come back if, if they were, if they were ever, given the green light. If To say that all of these people have moved on is complete and utter bullshit. It is. And there is more than enough evidence out there to support, to support what I am saying right now, to support that Snyder definitely has not moved on. The actors have not moved on. And there is still a very, very large, group of people out there that want to see this restored, that want to see, the Snyderverse restored. They want to see these actors return. And, the anniversary of, the Snyder Cut was not that long ago. I think it was, in fact, I think it was just last month. Or wait, no, 2 months ago. Sorry, March. Um, it was, and obviously, everybody took to Twitter that day and made their voices heard. The Restore the Snyderverse was like the number one trend on Twitter that day. And and like I said, there are still fans out there. There are still fans out there, fighting, to make their voices heard. Who want, who want this, to continue. And so to say, that, so to say, so to say something, uh, so to say, oh, you should move on, they've all moved on. These are all haters that are saying this. These are all toxic. These are these are all toxic, uh you know uh these are all, toxic, hating, uh you know anti, anti Snyder, gun supporters. And 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 it's and it's funny too, because they keep telling us to move on when they haven't, when they themselves haven't even moved on. You know what I mean? Like, Zack Snyder hasn't been a part of DC for 8 years now, and his haters continue to piss, bitch, and moan and act like he's still there. They continue to talk about, they continue to hate on someone, and, and piss and moan about a director who literally has had nothing to do with DC now for 8 years. So, and, so to tell, and here's another thing, when if you're passionate about something, right? If you're passionate about something, if you genuinely want, um something to continue, if you genuinely want, like, if you are passionate about, if you are passionate about something, are you going to give up on it? No. You're going to fight to the nail to see, to see that it continues. You are going to fight to the bitter end to make your voice heard and to make you were going to fight to the nail to make your voice heard and to and do everything within your power, to try to get that, you know, t- to try to get that to continue, whatever it is, whatever it is. And of course, in the guntards are obviously going to come out and say, oh, the Snyder fans is a vocal minority and blah blah blah. Most people are excited, for James Gunn's upcoming Superman movie. No, they're not. No, they're not. And I and you know a- and I have talked about this to death here on the channel, but Warner Brothers is not promoting Superman. We are 2 months away from release and we still don't even have an official trailer. And and we still don't even have an official trailer. So the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery is not promoting this movie, and the fact that we are literally 2 months away from release now and don't even have an official trailer tells me two things. It tells me that they don't have any faith in James Gunn and what he's doing. And the fact that we still don't have, an official trailer tells me that Warner Brothers is having a hard time, trying to figure out a trailer, an official trailer, to put out there that's going to convince, diehard fans and the general audience that this movie is going to be good. It tells me that they're having a hard time, uh, trying to put together a trailer that's going to show this character how, how the fans, want him to be portrayed. And, and if you look at, and again, I know I've talked about this to death as well, but if you look at, James Gunn's, um, past history with, with comic book properties, if you look at, Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of these are bastardized versions, um, of their comic book counterparts. They are nothing like how they are, uh, in the books. And I've been saying this all along. James Gunn does not do characters justice. He bastardizes them. And, so the fact that we still have, the fact that that the Snyderverse still has, the massive fan base, that it does all these years later, and the fact that they're still out there, fighting, to make their voices heard, the fact that they haven't moved on, um after all this time shows you that they are not going to go away. The interest, for this universe to continue, uh the hype, it's not going to go anywhere. And and you know what and you know what the gun community, people like, uh you know the gun community and all those other toxic, YouTubers out there who are, anti-Snyder, telling us, to move on. They The fact that they are still out there fighting, you know, to make their voices heard and to, uh, you know, and trying to get, this universe restored. The fact that all of this is still going on show shows you, you know, shows you shows you how many people out there don't have faith in James Gunn's ability. Because and it also, it also shows you that, again, look at the money that Deadpool and Wolverine made. That movie would not have made the money that it did if there was not still interest for Hugh Jackman to return. If nobody wanted him to come back in the first place, that movie would not have made money. That movie would not have made the money that it did if that movie would not have made the money that it did if people that movie would not have made the money that it did if people did if people really had moved on. So and I think it also shows you that, and it also shows you that, when people are, again, when people are passionate about something, they're not going to just let it go. They aren't. When people, you know, when people love something as much as, whether it's, the Snyderverse or, or whatever, you know, when they are passionate, when, when they are, when they are that passionate about something and they want it to continue, they're going to fight till the end. They're not going to just go away. We're not going to just go away because people are telling us to. I can't even begin to tell you guys how many media outlets out there that are currently in bed with Warner Brothers. Literally, they are literally misquoting articles like Variety, for example. They are currently in bed with Warner Brothers. Okay. And I actually have here an example. I have here an example. Let me see if I can find it. I have here an example. I probably should have pulled this up before I started this video. Okay, yep. So this comes from Deadline. And it says here, so there is an article from Variety talking about how much, talking about how much, Ben Affleck, hated his time as Batman. He hated, wearing the bat suit. He said it was a pain in the ass to wear. It was, it was, it was hard to breathe in. It was, it was, it was sweaty. It made him sweat constantly. It made him, and all this other stuff. So we're going to take a look at something that he said here. And again, and this comes from Deadline. And this comes from Deadline. It says here, I love and it says here, I loved Batman versus Superman, and I liked my brief and I liked my brief stints on the Flash that I did, and when I got to work with Viola Davis on Suicide Squad for a day or two. The actor director says in an interview, I'm in terms of creativity, I really think I like the idea and the ambition that I had for it, which was the sort of older, broken, damage Bruce Wayne, and it was something we really want, and it was something we really went for in the first movie. So, um, so you have, uh, I can't even begin to tell you how many articles out there, uh, are literally misquoting, literally the entire, uh, literally just, the entirety of this. And it totally shows you that, a lot of these, a lot of these news outlets are in bed with Warner Brothers. They are afraid of, they are afraid of, the Snyder fans. They are afraid of, um, they are, I they are afraid of, they are basically afraid of making money, is basically what it boils down to, because Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers knows what people want. You know, they know what the fans want. They know, they know how popular, and how big is of a, and how big of a success, the Snyderverse was, and yet they refuse to give it to us because, and yet they refuse to give it to us because for whatever reason they hate Zack Snyder. So, so instead, so it's like instead they're going with something, they're going with something, and someone else's bullshit vision, which has lost them literally millions and millions of dollars. Their stocks are, Warner Brothers Discovery stocks are still around like $7, which which is insane. And if you look at, Netflix's stocks compared to Warner Brothers, if you look at Netflix's stocks compared to Warner Brothers, they're doing great. Netflix's stocks let me see if I can pull up the video here. Um 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 yeah. Um I don't remember where I saw the video. Um I really should have pulled this up before I started it. Um really should have pulled this up before I started it. Um All right. Yeah, I can't find it. But anyway, um, but yeah, no, anyway, so they're but overall, their stocks are doing just fine. So and people can say, "Oh, well, the economy is bad right now," and up, and just, these people can spin it, however they want, but there is literally no excusing there is no excusing the facts right now. And the facts are, yes, is the economy a shit show right now? Yes, absolutely. However, if Netflix can thrive, in times like this, you, if Netflix can, can thrive and make their money and do, as well as they're doing right now, then there is absolutely no excuse in the book for how Warner Brothers is doing right now. None. Absolutely none. And in fact, I was just fighting with someone earlier today. I was just fighting with someone earlier today online, saying saying that Warner Brothers is doing absolutely just fine. And if you watch and if you watch, my DC updates and and the stuff that I've been putting out, about Superman, about Warner Brothers, you already know that that is a load of shit, because they are the furthest thing from it right now. But and another thing, and another thing is when you and again, a lot of people are saying, oh, that these actors are too old now, these, up. They brought Disney and Lucasfilm made a fifth Indiana Jones movie with an 80-year-old Harrison Ford. So, so anyone who wants to sit there and bullshit me and tell me, that these actors are too old, when Disney, when Disney decided to do something like that, is ridiculous. And now, me personally, obviously, I think that movie shouldn't have. Now, me personally, I think that movie never should have been made in the first place, but that's beside the point. But you understand what, but I think you can understand what what I'm trying, to get at here. And something, and another, something else I want to bring up. Anybody who says that it is not possible for the Snyderverse to come back, let me counter that argument. What happened after the failure of Ghostbusters 2016 and Rob Zombie's Halloween movies? What happened after those three things failed? That's right. They rebooted the timeline and brought back all the original actors and made sequels. So, you know, Blumhouse took control of the Halloween franchise, and they brought back Jamie Lee Curtis, and they rebooted the timeline, and they made and they made sequels. Same thing with Ghostbusters. So, so there is no reason, there is no reason at all why, there is no reason at all why, if there is still interest, if the actors still want to do it, if Zach still wants to do it, which is definitely the case. So as long as they are more than willing to do it, as long as the hype and the, in the loyalty, from the fan base, continues, there is no way in hell, there is absolutely no way in hell why this can't happen. Because at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, you know, because at the end of the day, the Snyder, remember, remember, a lot of people said the Snyder Cut was never going to get released. And look how that turned out. The Snyder Cut got released because because we, as the fans, didn't give up. That's why that movie got released. Because we, as the general audience, as the fans, didn't give up. That is why that movie got released. And that is why, we as the fans, that is why we as the fans need to keep fighting and keep, and keep the support, and keep supporting, Snyder and all the other actors, who want to continue, who want to see, Zack, finish his vision. Because because let me tell you guys, and I know I say this all the time, but Superman is gonna fail. There is no, there is no hype from, from the general audience, from the diehard fans. Plenty of gun fans out there will say, that they're comic book fans, that they're DC fans, but they aren't. They aren't. And they aren't. And I've seen the way, that these, I've seen the way that these people behave. They are disgusting. They are every bit as narcissistical as James Gunn is. And in the minute that you say something that pisses them off, they go right in. They go right in. They go right in with, they go right, full on in, with, they go right full on in with the personal attack, and then boom. They are so desperate, to win, they are so desperate to win, the argument, that they will use anything that they possibly can, you know, they will use literally anything that they possibly can. And if you're willing to attack, that person personally, just because you're so desperate, to win that argument, you've already lost the argument. If you can't, find a good counter argument that doesn't involve, attacking someone personally, you've already lost. You're just, at that point, you're, at that point, you're just talking out of your ass and spewing out bullshit, which is exactly what these people do. And in fact, it's pretty much all they know how to do. But, and again, the fact that Hugh Jackman was able to get back in shape, was able to get back into that kind of shape at 54, I think should show you just how determined he was to get, to get back into that role, because he knew how much the fans wanted it. In fact, I even remember hearing that what really convinced him to return as Wolverine was when he saw Deadpool in 2016. And then, during, and then when he was promoting Logan, the year after, and told everybody that he was leaving, he basically flat out he literally flat out admitted and said, yeah, he literally flat out admitted and said, "Yeah, I was just lying in all of those, in all those interviews." So, and and a lot of people, and a lot of people are, um, and like the actors themselves are even hinting. The actors themselves are even hinting, that this is not over. Ben Affleck himself, um, just recently was asked by a fan, um, recently, asking about his return as Batman, and Affleck, just literally smiled and said anything's possible. So the fact, that he didn't say no, he didn't, he didn't say no, he didn't say hell no. He said anything is possible. So, that alone should tell you, that, that something is going on behind the scenes, and, something is going on behind the scenes. And again, Affleck, and again, Affleck hasn't moved on, because you can tell, he didn't, you can tell, he didn't say hell no. He didn't say I'll never do it again. He said anything is possible. So anyway, I just wanted to get this video out there, but let me know, let me know what you guys think, and let's continue this fight. Let's make our voices heard, and let's restore the Snyderverse. Um, because this is, because James Gunn, has done so much damage in the entire 3 years that he's been in charge of DC. And, and again, he is not portraying, these characters in a serious light. He never does. And he never does, and he never will. So, so let's continue the fight, and let's restore the Snyderverse, and let's give the fans what they actually want to see. Anyway, yeah, so let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.